Hello, everybody. This is Michael Moore's podcast. I'm filling in for Michael Moore today. This is the other Michael Moore, not the one that does the podcast every week, but me, the other Michael Moore, who, is usually watching The Bachelorette, Vanderpump Rules. So I just want to thank the real Mike for letting me take over on today's episode. Before we get started, let me just... it's some good news this week, and because both Mike and I, the other Mike, grew up in Flint, Michigan. I guess I'm supposed to say I was born in Flint, Michigan, and then my mom and dad got married, and then they moved out to this village about 6 miles outside of Flint that my mom's, great-grandparents, they moved to Michigan in, something like 1834, before it was a state. There were like 6 families there. It was mostly Native Americans. And they came across this lake, Lake Nipissing is what it's called, and checked in with the Native people and said, hey, would you mind if we just set up camp here? And they said, no problem. First mistake. Okay. No, my family and the other 5 families were all good people. And in fact, once they gave the Indians typhoid or whatever disease white people brought to this continent, the other 5 white families did not want to help, didn't want to get near the Indians with their typhoid because they got the typhoid. For some reason, the white people didn't have it. Or they had the virus, or I don't know the story. This is all science back in the early 1800s. Suffice it to say, the poor Native people, half the tribe came down with it. They're on the other side of the lake. They let the white people camp out on the southern shore of the lake. So my great grandfather was like, we've got to figure out a way to help them. A lot of them are dying. It's the 1800s. They didn't have much medicine or anything, but they did have some kind of medical training. One of them did. Actually, it was my great grandfather. And he said, why don't we load up a canoe and we'll signal them to come, one of them to come meet us in their canoe, and we'll take a bunch of food and supplies and things to help them. And so that's what my great grandfather did. And they helped nurse a lot of the Native people back from their sickness. A number did die, but the ones that didn't, well, they thought of my great-grandfather as someone very special to them for the rest of his life because he was willing to risk his life to go help them and to feed them. The stories that I was told as a child and all through my life and the research I've done. And then I was on that PBS show, Finding Your Roots, and Henry Louis Gates and his people at Harvard did this incredible research, found out all these things about the various branches of my family. And that was one of the stories. And of course, my uncle was in the Great Flint Sit-Down Strike that founded the UAW back in 1936, 37. And my grandmother was in the UAW, worked in the factory during World War II when all the factories were converted to making planes and guns and grenades and all this stuff. Instead of making spark plugs, I think she made grenades there in Flint. But, that's the family I grew up in. They're all UAW members on my dad's side. And we are the children of my parents. Were all beneficiaries of what the union did. Immediately in the 1930s, our fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers were paid a living wage from the defeat of General Motors in 1937. They got the first industrial contract for an auto workers union. And all through growing up, we had completely free medical care. Never heard the word deductible or copay. None of that stuff. We went to the dentist for free. We went to the eye doctor and got glasses for free. On and on and on, thanks to the union. And then, parents and grandparents were able to save some money, Anybody wanted to go to college could afford to go. I never heard the word student loan. To go to the University of Michigan, and it's not just Michigan, University of California was essentially free. SUNY schools in New York were free. University of Michigan, I don't know, what was it, like $100? It was an amazing time to grow up, but only because of the courage of our grandmothers, mothers, fathers, aunts and uncles, all fought hard, risked their lives, fought General Motors, fought Ford, or as we say in Michigan, Fords. It's a little colloquial thing to, don't ever ask us why the name of the company is Ford, but we always called it Fords. Yeah, no, I work over at Ford's. I never knew it was the wrong way to say it till I was an adult. And then people from other parts of the country, why do you guys say Fords? Because it's plural and they make more than one car. I don't know. So, anyways, and that's how I grew up. But let me not go back into that. I want to keep talking a little bit about this, and then I want to talk to you about what we need to do to support our college students that are leading the fight to stop this war in the Middle East. But first of all, let me thank the two underwriters for today's episode of my podcast. First up, a huge thank you to a longtime supporter of this podcast, and that is Stamps.com. Life, as we know it, is full of tough decisions. What a relief to come across a no-brainer. If you have a lot of mailing and shipping to do, Stamps.com is the no-brainer. It's like having a post office at your fingertips, wherever you are. All you need is a computer and a printer, or if you're out and about, the Stamps.com app on your phone. They automatically show you your cheapest and fastest shipping options, and you can schedule package pickups right from the Stamps.com dashboard. They even send you a free digital scale. So make the no-brainer decision, as over 1 million other businesses have, with Stamps.com. Sign up with the promo code RUMBLE for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone up at the top of the page, and enter the code RUMBLE. I also want to thank our other underwriter for this episode, and that is Moink. Now, I know that not all Rumble listeners eat meat, but for those that do, you know as well as I do that the best bacon and steak and chicken and the best salmon you'll ever eat won't come from the grocery store. You'll only get it from the family farm and the independent Alaskan fish workers. That's where Moink comes in. Moink is a meat subscription service that delivers grass-fed beef and lamb, pastured pork and chicken, and sustainable wild-caught Alaskan salmon direct to your door, all while helping family farms become financially independent from big agriculture. Their animals are raised outdoors on grass with no growth hormones, no antibiotics, no confinement buildings, no sketchy growing practices, just good old-fashioned farming methods. Keep American farming going by signing up at moinkbox.com/rumble right now, and listeners of this episode will get free bacon for a year. That's 1 year of the best bacon you'll ever taste, and it's only for a limited time, though. So it's spelled Moink, M-O-I-N-K, box. Moinkbox.com/rumble. Everybody got that? Moinkbox.com/rumble. And thank you, Moink, for supporting my voice and this podcast. The good news this week is, once again, the UAW has defeated, for like the first time ever, a foreign car company. They all go from all these liberal, progressive European countries, you know, for the people. But when they build their cars in America, they build them down south where they can pay people shit, where there are no unions. And that's the way it's been for 4 decades or more. This is where Toyota goes, Mercedes, Nissan, Volkswagen. Go down the whole list of them. They all do it with non-union labor. And then they sell their cars to good-minded liberals who like to drive a really safe Subaru. But what happened, as you know from past podcasts, is that last year, finally, one of the most progressive candidates to run for the office of president of the UAW ran and won based on the fact that in a previous election, finally, the rank and file, the average workers, would be able to vote in a direct popular vote for who would be president of the UAW. Before that, you had to get elected to go to a UAW convention, often held in Florida or Las Vegas or, usually some non-union state, which I used to convince myself, well, that's good. That's where they should go because they got to convince them to join the union. But it was really just a lot of times the union hacks basically running, getting elected, they would go, and then they would appoint who the president would be. Now, I will say this, as far as most of the unions go, UAW usually had good people there, good people running things, trying to run things, not great people necessarily, but good people who, would eventually cave into what General Motors or Ford's wanted and then and go along, and the workers would get some kind of mediocre contract. And over the years, all the things that my family and other families fought for in the 30s and 40s and 50s eventually evaporated. And all of a sudden we learned words like deductible and copay. Oh, jeez. And so I and others supported over the years the left wing, essentially, of the UAW to get, first of all, everybody gets to vote for president, and then let's elect a president that's going to fight for the workers. And we finally got that. We finally got that a year or so ago. The individual's name is Shawn Fain, S-H-A-W-N, Fain, F-A-I-N. And he, on his first day, gave a speech that put them all on notice. Here we come. Everything you've made us give back over the years, we want it back. We're getting it back. And get ready, rich fucks. We're coming. And as you, I'm sure, remember, this past summer, boom. UAW goes on strike, won't go back until there's at least a 20 or 25% pay increase. Boom. And all the other things that were lost over the years, they didn't get it all back in one strike. That's probably going to take another strike or two. That's okay. We're patient. Not really. This new leadership of the UAW is on fire. And this past week, the president of the UAW, Shawn Fain, issues essentially a proclamation. Or, I don't like to use violent imagery, but he decided to fire the warning shot over the bow. And what he said was this: we at the UAW are not just concerned about auto workers or the members of our union. We are going to lead. We are going to lead the movement for all working people. And we will join with all other unions who want to be a real union, and we will fight for all working people. All genders, races, creeds, colors, the caste system that's been set up, we're going to tear it down. The two-tier system, when President Obama stepped in to save General Motors and Chrysler, save them, except in the saving, back, Obama and Biden, they used to run on this slogan about, vote for us. We saved Flint. We saved Detroit. You didn't, with all due respect, you did not save Detroit or Flint. They're still in need of saving. What you saved was General Motors, and there's still a General Motors. And what you saved is Chrysler. And now there's still a Chrysler, except it's called Stellantis or some other, one of those fake names that you pay branding companies $10 million to come up with something called Verizon. We've said Verizon for so long now. Have you actually forgotten it's not a word? You remember when you first heard it? Oh, Horizon. Oh yeah, no, we had a bookstore where I lived. Horizon Books. No, not Horizon. Verizon. Well, what's a Verizon? It doesn't matter. It's just they paid millions of dollars for somebody to come up with that. Okay. Well, anyways, the new UAW, under the new leadership, announced their commitment over the next 4 years. Back when I was born, over a third of the country belonged to a union, which is a lot considering the South was still part of the country. A third when I was born. It got down to something like 11% here in the last few years, but that's if you count public employees. Cut the teachers and the people that plow the snow on your street and cut them all out of it. I'm talking about now for the private companies, the engine of America. It got down to 8 or 9%. That's all that had a union contract that guaranteed the health care, the 2 to 4 week vacation. Well, I'm thinking back to when I was a kid. My dad, they all had 4 weeks off when I was a kid. All the women and men who worked for the UAW. And so they said, we're done giving in. Obama got the union at that time, the UAW of 2009, to agree to where the older workers who've been there for a while could keep their a portion, I should say, of their pay in the $20 to $25 range. By the way, the media, which is always on the side of the large corporations which own the media, always will tell you that these workers are getting like $38 or $40 an hour. And they put in all these other things. It's not their actual take-home pay. It's not even their gross pay. They add any little benefit they get. Like if suddenly now it's, Martin Luther King Day is a holiday. They count that as not into their pay, but it's a cost to General Motors because these are paid holidays. And so they have people thinking that these auto workers are making a ton of money. They're making better than if you're working at Chipotle. That's the best you can say. But when they won the strike this summer against General Motors and Stellantis Chrysler, not Ford's decided that they didn't think it was right. And I don't know, I probably should know this story better, but we're in the fourth generation now of the Ford family, that, starting with Henry Ford back in the early 1900s. And then it went to his son, then it went to his grandson, and then went to his great-grand. Right now we're in the great-great-grandson era. And what that has given us is, I think the great-grandson was a Buddhist, and he turned the roof of the Ford headquarters there in Dearborn, Michigan, into a green, like, jungle, just beautiful, lush thing that would cover the roof, would keep in the heat. It would be an energy saver. Looks really nice too. So we got that out of the great-grandson Ford. And a lot of his Buddhist thinking, a lot of the way to treat people was anyways, by the time it got around to GM going belly up and Chrysler going belly up, they didn't go belly up. They were the number one American car seller. They made cars that people wanted. They stopped believing in planned obsolescence, which was the way that it always used to work. Planned obsolescence meaning they built cars that were supposed to fall apart in 3 or 4 years so that you, the people, would just keep buying another car. So they stopped that under the Buddhist regime that was running Ford. And they started making cars, starting with the Ford Taurus, that actually lasted 6, 7, sometimes close to 10 years. And all the nabobs over at General Motors and Chrysler, they're going, why are they doing that? How are they going to make any money? If you got to get people to buy a car every 3 or 4 years. Car's got to fall apart. Typical, American thinking, American car thinking. Except here's what happened. A new generation was growing up, and the parents that were buying Fords, all of a sudden, it's like the car worked. The glove box didn't always fall down when you came to a stop. Things like that. You didn't have to keep replacing the little light bulb in the overhead light when you open the door of the car. Stuff like that. The muffler didn't fall off. And what happened is that when the consumer buys something and it doesn't fall apart and it lasts, the next time they're ready to buy a car, what do you think they're thinking? Oh, this was really boring. We never were in the repair shop or whatever. Let's go back to General Motors. I kind of miss Mr. Goodwrench. No, that's not what happened. What happened is, after buying that first Ford's, they buy a second one. The next time around, then they buy essentially the next generation that's growing up. They still buy Fords because the thing isn't going to fall apart. And it took General Motors and Chrysler so long to figure that out. And only when the Germans then stepped in, Germans came to Detroit and bought Chrysler. Mercedes-Benz bought Chrysler. Daimler-Benz is the name of the corporation. And all of a sudden they started telling the people there that were running Chrysler, you can't be making these minivans that every time you hit a bump in the road, your head hits the ceiling. We're going to put some Mercedes shock absorbers, and we're going to build the chassis of this so that it at least feels like a Mercedes. And all of a sudden it became the number one minivan, the Dodge Caravan and the Town and Country. Why? Because people were happy that they hadn't bought a piece of shit. And then they started buying more of them. And then Chrysler was able to somehow almost escape bankruptcy. Not quite. Okay, this is a long way of saying the good news. That not only did the UAW win new contracts to get rid of the old ones that Obama set up, again, the two-tier system where the old workers were still making over $20 an hour, but any new hires that started during the Obama administration, they could only make $10 to $12 an hour. So auto workers were making $10 to $12 an hour. That's not a living wage. So you're working as an auto worker, you're a union member, and you can't pay all the bills. So the progressives within the UAW fought, got more elections, won more elections within the locals, and eventually a year or so ago, we ended up with Shawn Fain as the president of the UAW. And a whole new era began. Immediately announcing they weren't going to settle for anything. They wanted the old stuff back that they gave up to save General Motors and Chrysler. And they won. They won last summer. All three of them, including Ford's, decided to make it all right. And when that was over, they said, now we're going to go south in the U.S. and we're going to unionize these auto plants. Foreign automakers, you have been warned. And last week, Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the workers there, for the first time ever, voted in the union. And now all the others, Nissan, Toyota, Mercedes-Benz, all the other workers in the other factories down south are like, wait a minute, we want this to, what, a 20% raise? They're all in now. They're all going to be fighting for this. And then just here before the weekend, there's a Mercedes truck plant down south. They already had a union, but they got skunked again back in the day, back around 08, 09. And they announced they were going on strike, and boom, all of a sudden, they got what the new UAW was getting the other workers. 2 UAW victories, both of them down south, both of them within a week of each other. And you can see what's happening. And so a few days ago, Shawn Fain, president of the UAW, asked all other unions to join with him in what will be a 4-year campaign, a 4-year movement to organize and unionize the United States of America, to give every worker the chance to be paid not just a living wage, but a good wage, a great wage, where you can enjoy life, where your kids don't have to worry about going to college, where we're going to have true universal health care, where everybody is covered for everything. None of this Plan B shit. The real deal, just like they have in every other democracy. That is what they have announced. And they have asked that all unions, if they're in the middle of doing new contracts now, that those contracts must have an end date of April 30th, 2028, 4 years from now. Because they have called for May 1, May Day, May 1, 2028, as the day, as the goal date. There are new contracts, not just for union members now, but all workers should have a right to join a union and have that union fight on their behalf for better wages, better benefits, safer working conditions. And this is a 4-year mission. Talk about thinking long term. And it's already started. I mean, it literally just started before the weekend started, with this latest victory. It will continue this year. Don't forget the victories before the auto workers this past year. The Teamsters put UPS up to the wall, and they got what the workers wanted. All the UPS truck drivers. The unions for what I do for a living. We went on strike. The writers, the actors, and held out until we got what we thought was a fair contract. Largest strike ever in Hollywood. Longest. Nobody was giving in. Everybody now finally sees the writing. It's not just on the wall. They've smeared it all over our faces. And we are happy to be part of leading this movement so that those of you listening to me who aren't being paid what you should be paid, who don't have the great health coverage, who don't have a pension. If you're under 35, look it up. Pension, Pension. That's what we and our fathers and our grandmothers and our aunts and our uncles, that's what they all had and have to this day. Ask any teacher in any blue state. Actually, really, to tell you the truth, the National Education Association and the other teachers union had great contracts and continue to have them. And they include things like a pension so that you don't have to work yourself to the bone, so you don't even get to the age of retirement because you're so wasted. You've got one spinal problem, one disease problem after another, working all those years, whether it's in a factory, in a school, whether it's in the sewage plant of your town. 30 and out. I remember that's my dad, the whole family, they were all fighting for that when I was a kid. 30 and out, meaning you work 30 years, that's enough. Standing on a factory floor, breathing in all that crap, doing all that hard labor. 30 and out, which means if you got a job at General Motors at 18, your retirement age was 48. And my dad took it. He took the retirement because he was in World War II. He actually was probably, I think, in his early 50s by the time he officially retired. But nonetheless, he got to enjoy his years from being 50 plus years old to when he passed away just before he turned 93. He got to do things he wanted to do. He got to volunteer for all the things that the Catholic Church he belonged to did for the poor. All that stuff. Enjoy life. Enjoy his children and his grandchildren. Same thing for my mom. Same thing. She was a clerk. So she didn't have a union. But here's the thing that happens in a town. When the union comes in and one of the big employers gets to, all the workers there, they go on strike or they sign enough union cards and there's a union, their wages go up. The other places, even the local, public institutions, they've got to be able to match what the workers are getting at the union place. Otherwise, people are all going to want to go to the union place and then you don't have enough workers. So even though you may not get the union at your place, you get the union pretty close to the union wages when you live in a town like that. And the union movement spreads. I mean, I've talked to you about this before, how I remember one of the dads, he was a bagger, grocery bagger. In other words, he stood at the end of the, thing when they, on the belt, the food's moving through, the cash registers, punching it all in, says, that'll be $21 for this week's groceries. I know, I come from a different planet, different time. But then there's a man or a woman with an apron at the end of the thing, putting all the groceries in a very smart fashion, by the way, in the bag so nothing gets crushed. And puts it all in your thing so you can wheel it out. That was a union job in Flint, Michigan. If you got your groceries at Hamidi's, which was a local Arab, Palestinian, Lebanese run business, as many of our great local businesses were in southeastern Michigan. Thank you, Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, for, helping give us the middle class life that we had in Michigan. And to some extent, some people still have, not all. That bagger, that grocery bagger, got a union wage with health benefits, with retirement, pension. Can you believe this? Young people, I'm telling you, that I'm going to say it again. The person who bagged the groceries got 2 to 4 weeks vacation, got medical care, dental, all this stuff. And it wasn't just the grocery baggers. It was the nighttime janitors waxing the floors. It was the dry cleaners, all the people that sucking all those fumes, working, dry cleaning people's clothes. They were union. I'm just going down the street where I lived on, just thinking of different people that worked there. And I'm thinking the only people on our, I lived on a dirt street. There wasn't even pavement on this street. And God, just thinking back to just how the class system worked, especially in a union town. Okay, so maybe it took another decade before we got pavement on the streets. But on our dirt street lived a whole bunch of factory workers. But also there were 3 public school teachers, the Presbyterian minister, a doctor, an osteopathic doctor lived on our street. Great guy. Any of us kids, broken arm, we didn't have to go to his office or the hospital. He was just down the street. And he was there to help. The man living next on one side of us, I think drove truck, worked at one of the, one of the steel fitting places in Flint. Did I mention the postmaster lived on our street? The postmaster for the town lived on our dirt street in a little two bedroom, 3 bedroom, maybe little ranch. What was called a ranch house. Trust me, it didn't look like a ranch. Oh, they were such good people. All these good people I grew up with. And everybody lived the middle class life. Everybody took a vacation. Every one of them, the kids went to college. Student loan? What the fuck was that? I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. Young people, you've been had. You've been snookered. You've been bamboozled. And it's so morally wrong that you didn't and haven't been able to have what your parents had or your grandparents had. And that's what Sean Fain and the UAW announced this week. They're sick of it too. They're sick of it, not just for their own auto workers. They're sick of it for everybody. And now the fight begins. 4 years. Union America. Wow. Why do I think we have a great chance of this happening? Because you, listening to me right now, and the people you know, have had it. And the young people, they don't need me to tell them how they've been bamboozled. They know it. And that's why they're in the streets. That's why they're on the college campuses. That's why there's tents going up everywhere. You haven't seen anything yet. And all the lies, the media, and everybody trying to tell people about these demonstrations. Oh, man. It's not working, is it? They interviewed this college student. You know, they find that one college student. I'm fearing for my life. I've spent all week here on campus running for my life. Are you serious? Yes, it's all hate and it's anti-Semitism. Wait. Which part is anti-Semitism? Well, it says free Palestine. I got to read the signs everywhere. I got to read these signs. They're in my face. Free Palestine. Yeah, which means free a group of people, the Palestinians, who are part of one of the original Semitic tribes, Semites. What's anti-Semitic about trying to free Semites? What I don't. It says from the river to the sea. Yeah, that's what it says here in the United States Constitution, except we got a bunch of rivers in the middle. So it says from sea to shining sea. Is that anti-Semitic? The only anti thing it is I guess it's anti-Native people. But, we had a nice long genocide that took care of that. Because remember, never forget, we are the OGs of genocide. And so now, all these hundreds of years later, to see good people, or people we thought were good people, committing a genocide against the Semitic people, the Palestinians. I love when I have this conversation with people who I'm trying to just bring along. I still haven't given up on them. I hate it. They've given up on themselves. They believe that it's okay to steal land and to have a system where some people are free and the others live in an open air prison. But I try to get this through, and I'm like, no, don't you see? If you believe in democracy, that's the way to go. Where everybody has a fair and equal chance at everything. Except if you form a theocracy that says one religion gets the special privilege. And the others, well, to listen to the worst of what I've had to listen to in recent months, the others don't exist. Michael, why do you call them Palestinians? There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a Palestinian. There's no such thing as Palestine. That's all made up. Mm-hmm. So where do you get what backs your deed to this land? Well, it's in the Bible. Oh, I see. So that's not made up. Really? You know, even some of the most religious people I know and respect will tell you that that book is a series of stories, allegories, parables, to try to speak to the larger truths about that we should not take each other's lives, that we should respect and love each other, that we don't steal from others, and we don't lie, and we're not envious of other people and what they have. It's kind of the basis of most religions, really. And take care of the poor. Like in all religions, it's like at the top of the list. What we all have to do to make sure that those who are the have-nots get to have more. That's what it's really supposed to be about, right? And everybody should have that, whether it's from the river to the sea, from the mountain to the desert, from the ocean to the other ocean, whatever it is. I am so proud of the students who have been demonstrating, who have been building these encampments on the campuses, standing up for others. What's in it for you? What's in it for you at Columbia or the University of Michigan or Cal Poly Humboldt? Didn't that used to be Cal State? Where'd they get a Poly? I don't know. Don't get into it. I'm just saying this is going on now at hundreds of campuses in the U.S. and around the world. It's so powerful. It's so inspiring. It's so amazing. And the love that I have witnessed at these encampments, that just the thing I saw the other day, where this thing has been set up in support of people in Gaza, in support of the Palestinians, and a group of Jewish students showed up and wanted to be part of it, wanted to support the people in Gaza. And they were welcomed into the encampment by the Palestinian students. And by the next day, each night at these encampments, they show a movie outside. They've got music going. It's really it's a very nice thing. It's very well organized. They pick up the litter. It's very cool. Parents, you'd be proud of them. But here, what I saw the other night was in the entertainment part of the nighttime activities, a group of Palestinian Arab students were putting on a Jewish folk dance to welcome the Jewish students who had joined the encampment to stop Netanyahu and Biden from this war. Let me just say that again. Arab students learning a little Jewish folk dance to let them know how much they appreciated the Jewish support for what they were doing. And it's not just one place. That's just one thing I saw. There's so much love and compassion and kindness and empathy going on here amongst our kids. Parents, boomers should be very proud of these last really 2 generations, now close to entering a 3rd generation that we've raised, and what we taught them and how to be in this world, and the world we all want to live in. I don't know. I'm just so threatened by all this hate, and I have to run across. I'm running for my life across campus. Stop it. Stop it. Okay. First of all, leave the acting to those who are either there at school training to be actors or other professionals, or in my case, union members, SAG members. Stop the lying, stop the fakery, stop the killing, Stop your endorsement of the killing. All of us, the vast majority of Americans are for peace. The vast majority of Americans don't like this war, don't want Biden sending them more arms. And last week, what did he do? Send them billions of dollars of more armaments. What is wrong with you, Joe? I, in my life, have never seen a president, even Trump doesn't purposely try to lose. Why are you attempting to lose the election? Why are you telling these young people, there's no sense voting for me because I'm for war? I know those of you who listen to me every week here or so, you're like, Mike, you've been on this now since October. I know. I'm not going to stop either. I'm not going to stop until somebody who works in the executive branch tells me, and you don't have to give your name. I know enough of you anyways. You're going to tell me privately that the students, the kids, everybody, they've gotten through to Joe Biden. Now he's trying to figure a way out. There's nothing to figure out. Pull the plug. And then beg for forgiveness. This went on too long. You know it, Mr. Biden. And we cannot afford Trump back in the White House. And you will be remembered in history as the person who gave Trump a second term. The vast majority of those who are under the age of 30, they oppose you on this. And they're not going to vote for Trump. Don't worry about that. Worry about the fact that they're just not going to vote at all. Worry that they'll stay home. Or worry that they'll show up to vote and they'll do what I and others are encouraging them to do. Please vote for Congress and Senate. Build a Democratic wall. If Trump should win, build that wall around him so that he can't get anything passed for 4 years. How sad we have to lose 4 years of our lives. And all that should go toward creating a better world, a better society, saving the planet from its environmental catastrophe that we're in the middle of. We're going to have to just fight Trump because you, Joe, you told us you had an ironclad commitment to Benjamin Netanyahu. And that was worth it. That was worth it to destroy our country. You should maybe talk to some of the Jewish members of your staff, people that work in the White House, the executive branch, the various cabinet ministries there in D.C. I've spoken to a number of them who are also Jewish and who hate what you're doing. You should talk to them. You're listening to the wrong people. Or you're listening to a thing in your head that those of us who grew up in post-war America, we'd do anything to help our Jewish brothers and sisters to make sure they never had to suffer again like they had to suffer in the 20th century. Everyone was on board, except for the few haters and bigots. Everybody was on board to protect the Jewish people on this planet. And out of that came perhaps a well-intentioned idea, but one that hurt millions of others of people, took their land, made them live as second-class citizens. And now, 34,000 dead in just 6 months. 70% of them women, children, and old people. I paid for that. You paid for that. We've all paid for that. And if there's any justice in the universe, if we ever have to answer to anyone or anything, what's our answer going to be? I had to pay my taxes. April 15th. Okay. Let me tell you something. That's not going to fly. All of us have a responsibility. All of us should take some inspiration from our young people. And you don't have to go to the campus and support them. Just, they're doing fine. They've got this figured out. They're not going away. And they're not going to vote. They're not going to vote. A lot of them are not going to vote for a president who funded and armed this whole thing. Get that through your thick skull. You did so much good in your first 3 years. You're the most progressive Democrat that's ever sat in the White House. At least that's FDR, certainly in my lifetime. And there's been good people that have done good things. Obama and Jimmy Carter, Kennedy, there's, we can make a list, but nothing like what Joe Biden has done. And yet, like Lyndon Johnson, who gave us the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act and Medicare and Medicaid, and what's he remembered for? Sending 60,000 American kids to their death in Vietnam, which then also created the deaths of well over 2 million Vietnamese, killed by the United States of America, killed by the policies of Lyndon Johnson and then Richard Nixon. Okay, they're telling me my time is up. I just want to thank everybody for being involved, caring. Don't despair. That is their biggest weapon against us. Have us despairing. Have us feeling so defeated. We are not. We are the majority. Act like it. Let Biden know how you feel. Let your representatives know how you feel. If you have young people in your family, if you have college students in your family, be supportive. Give them what they need. We are lucky to have them. Oh, man. We are so lucky. Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to go online and figure out how you can get people that you work with to sign a union card. That's the first step. To sign up to have a vote, a democratic vote where you work. Because this is a democracy, right? Yeah. And you could still do this. It's not too late. Trump's not back yet. Join the UAW or join along with them in organizing and unionizing every worker in this country. Thanks to my executive producer, Angela Vargos. Thanks to all of you who listen to this podcast. I'll talk to you soon. Be well. Thanks.